Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes Podcast. I'm your host, Rico Muhammad. Very excited for tonight's show. We have a power lineup prepared for you guys tonight. And before I do anything else, or without any further ado, I'm going to welcome my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow, into the show tonight. Good evening, Chuck. How are you?
We're doing well. How are you, Rico?
Doing great. I'm excited for tonight's show.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunately we have to have this the show about this, and we're going to be first of all we're going to be talking about getting you and your trucks ready for winter, and even more importantly, we've got we've got a bunch of experts here on advising our listeners what to do. God forbid they have a crash. We've got Hank Seaton coming on, our resident legal genius. We've got Rick Gobble, who is got a incredible pedigree as far as truck safety, and John Farquhar, who comes from both the trucking background and a safety background. John has been around the safety game for a long time, worked for a couple of insurance companies before starting out on his own with Summit Risk Solutions. And we're going to be talking, just telling our listeners what to do and what not to do.
So before we bring everybody up and on board, I need you guys a little bit of housekeeping. If you have a question, put it down in the chat. Type your question down in the chat. I'm not sure if we're going to have enough links to send out for everybody to join us, but the best way to get your question in is to type it into the chat, and we should be able to see it, and we'll make sure that we weave your question into tonight's subject. If you know anyone else that might be able to benefit from this information, if you got a friend of a friend, share, like, and subscribe to the video so we can try to get the information out to as many people as we possibly can. And so with that being said, and without any further ado, I don't want to keep our esteemed guests waiting any longer. We're going to welcome in John first. Good evening, John. How are you?
Wonderful, Rico. Good afternoon. Good evening, I guess, or something like that. Anyway, yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Hi, Chuck. How you doing?
Hey, great to have you on again.
Well, thank you. It's fun to be here.
All right. And then we're going to welcome in our resident legal expert, Mr. Hank Seaton. Good evening, Hank. How are you?
Hi, guys. How are y'all?
We're doing great.
All right. And once again, we want to welcome back to the show again, resident safety expert, Mr. Rick Gobble. Good evening, Rick.
Hey, Rico. Hi, everybody. Glad to be back. Looking forward to it.
All right. So I think the first order of business that we want to get into before we get into the accident scenario situation, we wanted to talk a little bit about proper steps on making sure that we got the truck, getting prepared for winter. And Rick, this is a question for you, not to see if you might be able to help us out. But I know that there are certain states and certain jurisdictions, and you might be able to point our audience to tell them where they can find that information at. As far as certain places, you have to have chains and all that good stuff hanging before you can even come into the state, even if there isn't any kind of inclement weather or anything like that. I don't have those problems because I stay down here in the South. But for the people that may need that information, where could they find it? Or if you know offhand where those places might be, by all means, jump in and share some information with us.
Now, is that for me? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir,
Yeah,
Rick. That was for you.
We don't have a real good resource at FMCSA. We never have had. I was always thought that we probably should have at least some of these western states. With the Colorado, for example, a lot of drivers get out there and they're not allowed on certain parts of the interstate because of some sort of gripping device, Rockies. But if there's a resource somewhere within the agency, I'm not aware of it. The only thing I do know is that each state does do a pretty good job about trying to publish that, put it out for the industry. But if somebody knows about one source, what we used to call one-stop shop, when you was talking about permitting things of that nature, that I don't know. Well,
probably the best resource might be, and I'm not sure how many people actually carry around the old Rand McNally updated interstate atlases anymore. But I think they do a pretty good job with keeping the information in there. But with all of the navigation systems and everything now, I'm not sure how many people actually even carry around an old map book or atlas anymore.
They'd be a fool if they didn't, Rico, because sometimes GPS systems just don't work.
Or at least one that's up to date, an up to date one. It might be about 4 or 5 years old. They might still have one, but it might be about 4 or 5 years old. It's always good to have an updated one that has all the latest information and regulations in there.
Yep.
I think the rule of thumb is if you're going to any of the mountain regions, west of Kansas, you better bring with some jewelry and get ready to put chains on just in case. Or you got to have them regardless. Even if you decide you're not going to put chains on and you're just going to wait it out, you still have to have them on your truck.
I know up here in the Great White North, about the only province we got that mandates the chains is BC, British Columbia. And
Alberta doesn't?
Alberta doesn't have a chain law. BC does. Chain law and snow tires have to be in place by the beginning of October, regardless of whether there's snow on the ground or not. So, same as what Rick says, there's no real good resource to find that other than to go to that provincial website for British Columbia. That'd be about the only thing you're going to get some information from.
So some practical things that, we want to try to give everybody some practical tips and advice as far as getting prepared for winter, with breaking ice freezing up. The truck stops have done a pretty good job with making sure that they have winterized the diesel fuel, have the winter treatment already done to the diesel fuel. Not so sure if any extra measures are really needed when it comes to making sure that you're treating your diesel to keep it from gelling up. If you might want to go through any extra steps, like I say, I'll leave that to you guys because, like I say, I stay down in the sunny south, so I about as cold as I'm gonna get is on a bad day might be near zero, but that's on a real bad day.
Well, I would say you're spot on, Rico, because I know when I was running years ago, if you were headed north, the last thing you wanted to buy was Southern fuel, knowing you were going into the freezing temps. So, it was limp your way up, or if you had to buy fuel, then you better treat it before you got there. So, but yeah, like if you're in the north, a good chance you're going to buy winter fuel. But I just actually just seen an article this morning. I didn't read the whole thing, but I caught it. There's, they're talking about fuel prices going up due to a shortage of diesel fuel. So something that comes to mind all of a sudden is, do we have enough winter fuel? Or, is there a shortage of winter fuel or summer fuel? And that'll be interesting because, people could be getting themselves in real trouble if they don't have enough winter fuel, treated fuel. So they might be going to the southern stuff without putting any treatment in.
But regardless, you know what? I'm a big believer, even if you buy fuel in Northern Ontario or Regina, Saskatchewan, you still put this time of year, put conditioner in.
Protect yourself.
It's so much cheaper than breaking down side of the road.
Yeah, that tow jars and draining them fuel tanks just ain't worth it.
Yeah.
And just another thing from a practical standpoint, I'm just going to speak from a driver comfort situation. I did have the unfortunate incident once previously to where I was in a truck. I was up north somewhere. I can't remember exactly which state it was. That just tell you how long ago it's been. But make sure you got some good warm clothes in the truck at all times. The truck may shut off, may shut down. You may not have access to heat. Make sure you got something that definitely probably a good time to go by and buy the little hand warmers and the boot warmers and all that stuff. Just throw them in one of the cabinets in the truck. Kind of keep that stuff available. Make sure you got food, canned food.
It's really important.
Things of that nature, so that you can make sure if a push comes to a shove, or if you happen to get caught out somewhere and they got the highway shut down for a day or two at a time, and if worse comes to worse, that you got enough to make sure that you got enough to survive and take care of yourself. So make sure you try to make sure that you always got a little something, if it's nothing but some MREs or something like that, just to throw back there for nutritional values and stuff like that. Keep your water and things of that nature. Keep plenty of that stuff always in the truck at all time. Any other things, gentlemen? We want
candle, Rico. Believe it or not, keep a couple candles. They can save your life. If you're on a road and it's shut down and it's really cold and you can't get through, you're not going to be real comfortable, but it'll keep you from dying.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a big lover of insulated coveralls, and with today's technology and fabrics and whatnot, they've made insulated coveralls really lightweight yet super warm. They're great for absorbing moisture away from the body and whatnot. But yeah, great idea. So
here's a real good one. Keep some kitty litter and bleach. Works good if you get stuck in the truck stop due to snow. Now, I knew about the kitty litter. I did not know about the bleach. My favorite to go to for everything is methyl hydrate. It'll melt ice. It's an expensive way of doing it, but it'll melt ice really quickly. And I put a little in with my windshield washing fluid. It keeps my windows really clean.
Anything that from a legal standpoint, Rick, that you think that from a regulatory standpoint, is there anything that I'm not sure if that's anything that they keep in they were having a regulation or anything like that, but do they say anything about stuff that a driver should have in the truck at all times?
No, when you ride regulation, you're riding it for all 50 states, and you can't write regulation to say that for people in Florida. Always, anytime there's a regulation written or proposed regulation, then everybody has an opportunity to comment. So we've always kind of stayed away from that. I don't disagree at all. It's what was just said. Some of the things you might need if we've had that to happen here in Tennessee. I know we had them up there on the Monterey Mountain back when I was division administrator, and a couple of trucks couldn't get over the mountain. We blocked up 40 going east between Nashville and Memphis. Nashville and Knoxville. And we had people set up there all night long. And we finally sent the National Guard. I got in it. They said, what can we do? We got these trucks blocked. We can't get traffic going. So I said, I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's call the National Guard. They can pull them trucks out of the way, and we can get this traffic out of here. And we weren't able to do it that night. We was able to do it the next day. We had a problem at that time with state law about if we tore up something. I said, dang, bunch of tearing up stuff. We got 300 or 400 people sitting up there on the interstate. We can tear up anything we want to tear up. But they didn't always listen to me. I would have been up there pulling stuff out with probably track on everything else. It'd be left up to me. But it's a good idea because we had people out there with four-wheelers. We have people out there on four-wheelers taking hamburgers and coffee and people up food up there from Cookville up the mountain there trying to help feed people that were stuck on that mountain. But no, there's no regulation that says that. You can imagine trying to write a regulation of that nature in the states down here. It might work in Canada, but we can never be able to write a regulation of that nature in our part of the country.
Okay. I was just curious because you hear when you're sitting around the truck stop or whatever at the lunch counter, you hear all kind of crazy stuff. I remember hearing one time that it was illegal to have any other color than white for your sheets on your beds.
Was that true? It was a trucking urban legend about Connecticut. Does anybody know if that was true?
Yeah. Well, we call that truck stop law,
Yeah. So listen to those truck stop preachers. They'll give you the gospel all the time.
So we kind of wanted to talk all this stuff about getting prepared for winter and everything because I'm sure everybody has seen the pictures of all the hitting winter on I-80, big pile up, trucks everywhere, accidents. So we wanted to talk a little bit tonight to talk about being prepared for those type of situations, but also the other critical component because most of our listeners are owner operators with their own authority, and this is something that is near and dear to me. And I've always said this: when you're in this position as an owner operator with your own authority, you don't have anybody else to call, so you don't know. You know what I'm saying? The buck stops with you. You're the chief cook and the bottle washer, so everything that is involved, if you happen to be in an unfortunate incident like that, there is no quote unquote safety department for you to call. There is no supervisor, dispatcher, or anybody else that you can call to help you out, to help walk you through or guide you through that situation. So tonight, that's what tonight's show is all about. We got people, we got a lot of guys, experts on, and mainly, I think Hank is going to give some sage advice. The number one thing that we probably need to remember when it comes, if we get into an accident like that, if we get into any type of accident, rather, not just a catastrophic accident, but a bad accident. So I want to throw that over to Hank real quick to just kind of give us some practical advice about how to conduct ourselves if we happen to find ourselves in that type of event, as far as from a legal standpoint. What to do to kind of help protect yourself, and then we'll kind of reverse engineer and talk about all the different steps that you might want to go through once you're in an accident or find yourself in a situation like that. So with that being said,
if you're going to turn it over to me, I'd say that if I get stumped and on accident issues, it's pretty easy to. First thing I do is refer it to Rick. If it comes to enforcement of the regulations, on that, he's certainly more experienced than me in terms of working wrecks and those things. I guess the keys that I would say is, there's the drug testing requirement. That can come back to haunt you if you don't get the guy drug tested when appropriate. First thing to do is to contact your underwriter. Maybe you need to go through your agent, but you don't need somebody that you can't find, because you need to get to the underwriter very quickly if it is particularly a personal injury wreck. They'll usually very quickly find off of their list a lawyer who does accident defense work where the accident occurred. And then to the extent you can, you follow their advice. Usually the insurance company, if it looks like it could be a liability accident, will appoint two guys, one to represent the carrier and the other the company, and the other the individual. I'm really concerned about the county mountie suspecting that there's something that's actionable on the driver's side, and wanting to lock him up, or all of a sudden you've got a question where he's been taken to a hospital and they don't want to relieve the toxicology report. I've seen all kinds of crazy consequences from the carrier point of view. You've got some guy who shows up after the accident, takes down notes and writes up a report, and that report can ultimately get reported against the carrier, and you'd be in kangaroo court, i.e. Challenging an SMS bus based on hearsay. If it's going courtside, it may be around you for years. If it's an SMS scoring issue, you've got yet an additional problem, because they don't really call balls and strikes that have the effect of law, but it can damn well whore up your insurance just as bad. So, I think for that reason, you want to cooperate with your underwriter as best you can. Lots of times, what your driver tells you may not be exactly correct. Like I mentioned before we got started, if some guy just kind of volunteers, well, I was a little tired, or he says, I just looked away for a minute, and that's that's contaminating. That runs into big verdicts. The plaintiff's bar is called the reptile. They're looking for little things like that that may not be the ultimate cause of the wreck, but with a jury sympathetic to the victims, you can almost be hit head on, and if you contributed to the accident in any way, you'd be nailed. So it's not really a fair system. Rick testifies frequently based on his expertise in accident reconstruction. I don't, but I am involved in helping small guys place these cases. Uh, we have a network of attorneys in each state. You've got a requirement that even if you're a small carrier, you've got to designate an agent. Unlike some guys you may be paying $50 a one-time fee to, our agents in each state are active motor carrier lawyers. So if you have our service and you call me and you got an issue and we need to get you legal advice in North Dakota, my man may be in Fargo, but you can bet he knows every other defense lawyer in the state. So at that point, we can quickly hook you up to somebody who can get on site and intercede for you, particularly if you've got somebody, your driver's been locked up and's got to post bail or those kinds of things. There really is a need to be pretty nimble in terms of doing it. If you're the one that's driving the truck, you probably need to have somebody on your call list that can bring you some legal attention and get a accident reconstructionist person there, hopefully quick on. Is that pretty sound, Rick?
Yeah, I feel good, Hank. I think you touched on something we don't often think about is a lot of times, and especially the more rural, the more that you'll see this is that that when trucks are involved with crashes with cars or maybe even other trucks, the local investigating officer may very well know the people involved on the other side. And of course, that brings on biases. And I know when I was with the state, I worked several wrecks that where I actually knew, particularly one guy. I remember I knew him very well. He was killed in a truck wreck. Truck come across the center line, struck him head on, killed him, and there he sat. Of course, and I've known him for years. But that brings on biases. So what our drivers, the first thing our drivers got to do, and we got to get this out there to all of them, if you're involved in an accident, just as soon as you can, I'm not to stop everything and not talk to anybody, but as soon as you can, you contact somebody with the carrier that you work for. Excuse me, and hopefully that person has some knowledge of what to tell our drivers, how to handle himself during these crash investigations. And of course, the more serious it gets, the more important it gets. So you want to tell your driver is, first of all, don't volunteer any information, don't draw any conclusions, because you may not really know what all did happen. When you're talking about a vehicle as long and as wide as a commercial motor vehicle with a trailer, sometimes we get hit in all places. We don't even know where we get hit sometimes. I know I finished the wreck up last year, I think it was, and our driver pulled out north on US Highway 51 over around Dyersburg right at dark, and this lady going north plowed in the back of our truck. The driver didn't even know it until he got up to the field he was going to. It was a farm operation. And the guy went back there to start offloading the liquid fertilizer. He said, "Hey man, there's a car hood stuck in the back of your trailer back here." And this lady had hit us doing about, I think the ECM showed she was doing 50-mile-an-hour. When she hit us, we was doing about 5. You can imagine what kind of an impact that was. Why in the world it didn't kill her, I don't know. But that was a great big deal that our driver drove up. That our driver didn't stop for the crash, and that they brought all that up to him he left the scene of a crash, things of that nature. But we weighed somewhere in the neighborhood of about 70,000 pounds, and that car weighed somewhere in the neighborhood about 3,500, 4,000. Great big difference. And also, we had to argue in that particular case. We were transporting liquid fertilizer, which has a tendency to slosh. We had 3 different, and the driver really did think that it was a sloshing tank. But anyway, you can imagine where that goes. It's kind of like I like to tell a story about one of our guys, a good friend of mine that worked with me for years, Bob Keener up at Knoxville. Bob was involved in a wreck one time up there at Sevierville, Tennessee, and in a government car. And Bob's famous words in that crash report was, "What red light?" So when he got out, the officer asked him, "Did you run a red light?" Bob's response was, "What red light?" Well, it was covered by a banner or something, So, and I worked a lot of wrecks where the drivers really just simply didn't know what happened, and things like that happen as fast as they do. Sometimes you won't remember things for 2 or 3 days, specifics exactly. So the best thing for a driver to do is only answer the question that you're asked. Don't volunteer any information, as I said, and be as truthful as you can be. And if you're not comfortable answering that question, you can simply say, "I'm not sure. I don't really know." That's pretty good responses, and those kind of responses do not show up in a police accident report. So I think the first thing they can do, and I wish, Hanky, that you was right. Every time we're involved in a bad crash, we could get some some insurance guy out there on the scene. I know when I was investigating crashes, the best information you get is information you get at that crash scene. Everything changes. Everything changes tonight. All the answers change tomorrow because people have it's a self-protection that we do to ourselves. If we're involved in a bad crash, first thing we say, "Oh God, look what I've done. What can I do?" The next thing we start to figure out, well, maybe this person did this or they did that, which caused this wreck, and our story starts to change. And I tell this story about, mention Monterey Mountain again, coming back west. We had this truck pass another truck, and there was a little small, I think at the time, I can't remember, Grand Am car. It had 4 high school kids in it, grandmother. They was going back to Nashville for graduation. And when our truck passed, I think it was a camper, he got over in the passing lane coming down Monterey Mountain there right before we get to Cookville on I-40. And when he passed that car, he come over into their lane. The right front tire caught that bumper of that little old car, and that little old car went out the back of that trailer, killed everybody in that little old car. And didn't get to talk to that driver until the next day. Well, he comes up with a story that it was a cat and a mouse type deal. He was passing, they pulled out in front of him, he couldn't slow. He went to the right lane, and then they went to the right lane. And you imagine what all, but that just wasn't true at all. We interviewed the people that was in that camper and saw the whole thing, and they said that's not what happened at all. But that's a one side, but it could have happened that way, and that's why it's important to try to talk to people. You talk to your driver as fast as you can. You get his side of the story.
Yeah, and accident in this regard, Rick, accident reconstruction, even being able to see around the accident site where the debris is scattered is important. We've been having some discussion with clients, particularly in terms of the value of the front-facing and the rear-facing camera, and I think they've got the cost down. I've got one client who's actually a broker, and she's making available to her small one-truck operators and agents the ability to buy into using front and rear-facing cameras. I think the front-facing camera is a positively good idea. but I have mixed views of the rear-facing camera, because if it catches the driver rolling down the window 5 minutes before the accident, plaintiff's bar is going to claim it was an indication you were tired. But I just ran into one that was really pretty interesting. Down in Louisiana, a client is really going hard and heavy against these guys who stage accidents. And the one that really started all of the indictments was one in which he had a rear-facing camera. And the driver didn't see this, but some dudes were over there trying to get onto the interstate ostensibly. And he's boogieing on down the road. And the next thing he knows, he's kind of halfway T-boned some guy in the left-hand lane that's trying to cut him off. Well, this was a staged accident. And because he had a rear-facing camera that was just right, they were able to use that and show that this carload of folks basically stalked him. And as soon as they saw he was coming on the interstate, they buzzed around the left lane and all, had deep tissue injuries. And but for that camera and reconstructing the site, there have been some other good money that an insurance company would have paid, because the scamsters were in cahoots with the law firm that was going to represent them. So that's just the kind of an example of the value of reconstruction. And to I'm sensitive to the fact that the people that are listening may very well not have a full-time safety department. It may be that their spouse is helping them keep up with the logs and the rest of the stuff. If there is anybody on the call that gets in that situation, whether you're a member of our agents for service of process or NASTIC or any other thing, just get my number from Rico and call me and tell me you're a listener. And, we'll be happy to find somebody in your area. First of all, get through to your insurance company at the same time. Get somebody to enter an appearance to get you if you need to be sprung from jail or anything like that.
John, I want to get you to. I'm gonna get ready to throw it over to you for a second, John. So we get some advice from you, Hank. But before I do, Hank, I just had something come across, and I wanted to. Not sure when we're gonna get a chance to get you back on, but so before we get out of here tonight, I wanted to draw your attention. We'll come back to this, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention in case you hadn't seen it. FMCSA released guidance on dispatch services.
Yes.
So hold the thought, Hank.
Dude,
we're gonna do that towards the tail end.
I'll promise to keep shut and spend the rest of my airtime talking about that portion.
I saw you getting ready to get wound up.
Okay, yeah, all right.
So I'm gonna toss it over to John, and John, give we were talking a little bit earlier before we came on air about practical things to do after an accident and things of that nature. So I wanted to throw it back over to you and give you an opportunity to kind of let's kind of touch on those things again for everyone tuned in and listening. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, just as a reminder, a little bit of housekeeping. If you got a question or a comment, drop it down in the chat. It'll come across. We want to try to involve you in the conversation as well. All right, John, the floor is yours.
Cool. Well, what Rick and Hank have brought to the table are spot on. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about what they've said. Everything is just excellent. However, I want to kind of give everybody an opportunity to prepare for that crash. We hope it never happens to them, but two scenarios come to mind here, and this is something that I do with a lot of my clients, whether you be a one-truck operation or a multi-truck operation. If you're working for a motor carrier, say you're a driver or even an owner-operator working for a motor carrier, prepare for that crash by having some real case scenarios where you create a mock process where let's walk through what's going to happen. So if you're involved in a crash, Rico, here's the steps you're going to follow. You're going to call me. I'm dispatch. I'm going to be the safety guy. This is what we're going to do. Here's the steps we're going to walk through. At the same time, I, as a representative of the company, am going to reach out to the broker, to my insurance company, to my claims department, to my adjuster. I want to create that call list that stays in-house so that when that driver calls, somebody in that office knows what they need to do and who they need to reach out to. So now, same thing can happen if you're an owner operator. You'd mentioned a lot of your callers are owner operators with their own operating authority, and they don't have dispatch. They take care of it themselves. Cool. Then have that list of contact names at your disposal. Have them on your phone, a list that says, okay, if I'm involved in a crash, who am I calling first? You know, who my insurance provider, I need to get a hold of them, and maybe a claims department, maybe an adjuster or something like that. Maybe second on my list is getting a hold of somebody like Hank. You know, I need to get a hold of that law firm that's going to help me out. But prepare for that crash and what you're going to do. Because one of the problems that we all run into, and I don't care who you are, it could be the best of the best. When you're involved in a crash, your nerves go for a crap. Yeah. You're just a frazzled mess all of a sudden. And now you're trying to go, okay, hang on, all that training we did. I remember we went through that training course. What am I supposed to do first? You know, but if you have a resource, a document, notes on your phone or something to help you walk through that, this is what I need to do. This is where I need to go. And even creating the tips from what Rick and Hank have brought to the table. You know, what should I do? Okay, just don't talk. Don't tell the officer anything he doesn't need to know. Shut up. Keep your mouth shut. You know, just give the facts. That's all you need. You know, stick to the plan. So create that. Some companies will actually provide drivers with that plan marked out, and it'll be part of say it's your crash data. Here's your report that you're going to complete, gather this information and whatnot. Well, part of that's going to be, number one, keep quiet, don't say anything. 2, call 911. 3, grab some pictures. 4, do this, call dispatch. You know, but have that plan laid out so that you know what steps you need to go through. Because I've been in that crash. I had that back in 2002, and I'll tell you what, I thought the other person was dead, and my nerves were crap, right? Yeah. Found out all she was injured, walked away. But at that moment, you're freaking. It doesn't matter how good you are. And I've been doing safety for years. Didn't matter.
That's a great tip. Have an accident protocol. Maybe a good place, like you said, to put it on the notes on your phone, because we pretty much always have the phone with us at all times. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a good. In the notes section on your phone, you can put, type out or maybe even take a picture and save it to the notes in your phone of an accident protocol or each steps that you might want to make sure that you. So that's an excellent suggestion for us. What else would you like to add to that, John?
Well, you know what? Do a mock trial. You know, like go through the steps. A lot of people have health and safety programs within their organization, and it might be as simple as, hey, we're going to do a fire drill today. Well, that's for the people in the office, you know, the people that are in that building, how to evacuate safely and whatnot. How about the guy that's on the road? Let's do a mock trial with him. You know, let's get him to call in at 2 a.m. and get a hold of dispatch and find out, how's this going to work? Let's give the driver confidence that the plan we've created is actually going to go into play. So I know when I worked with the insurance company here several years ago, one of the things that we did is we worked with a couple of large carriers, and one of them was a bulk liquid hazardous carrier. And they wanted to know, if I have a spill at 2:00 on a Sunday morning, who's there for me? And we created that protocol so that we set it up. And when he made that phone call, he got somebody in our claims department. He got a responder that could come to that spill and deal with it. We set that protocol in place for those clients, and that gave them peace of mind, and it really helped.
Yeah, you know, I think you raise a very good point. I think it's really incumbent upon you to ask your insured, what is your call line procedure? Yep. Who should we call? I had an interesting case years ago. I was called to after the fact try to get coverage for a insured on a cargo load. A reefer load turned over, and there was nothing wrong with the product, the insured spent all night trying to get someone at the underwriter to give them disposition. Nobody for the underwriter would do it. So the load was towed and declared a wreck. And then the underwriter said, well, we can't cover it because you didn't call us. And so as a result of all of that, the accident did not cause the spillage of the refrigerated product. It was the inability to get the underwriter, even though we had what was supposed to be a 24-hour hotline. And, so I think it really is incumbent. Some of you independent contractors may not be able to get the insurer of your choice, but I think it's certainly appropriate to say, what is your after hours number? Who should I contact?
So
Because
I got one that I want to throw at both John, Rick, and Hank, and you guys can take it however whatever pops in your mind. But say like if you're involved in an accident that's not that serious, not that bad, just something a little minor, maybe a scratch to the bumper, something of that nature. And a lot of times I know, hey, you guys be like, well, I really don't want to involve calling the insurance company. Don't want my rates to go up. Don't want to take the risk of getting dropped. Maybe I can work something out and pay this, give the person $500 or whatever, and we'll just keep it moving. What advice do you guys give for people that are thinking about not alerting and letting the insurance companies know that they have had a situation? And let's talk. I brought this up because I always pride our show as being a real world scenario type situation, and I want to bring this up while we got experts on here so that we can talk about this from a real world transparent type of format, because I know that there have been people that have been in that situation before. It may or may not have worked out for them before, but from a standpoint of covering your own ass, so to speak, I wanted to get make sure we throw that out there as well. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. Well, I want to jump in before Hank does, because Hank's going to support this. I know he is. I've never met the man before, but I know he's going to support this. So
That's what the guy like.
from the insurance perspective, we've always said you're smart to report them all, regardless of, right? But anytime you are involved with a third party and there's possible or potential for bodily injury, even if they look all right, report that incident. All you need to do is say notice only. I'm letting you know I was involved in a little fender bender. Damage was only like $500,000. I'm willing to pay the guy out, take care of it, but I'm just putting you on notice, because if that guy comes back and decides to say, oh my gosh, my neck or my back or soft tissue injury, and you never reported that to the insurance company, all hell is going to break loose, and they could deny part of that claim. And that's where Hank's going to come in, because he's going to tell you the support story.
Yeah, you nailed it. If there's a possibility of property damage and it's anything other than a fender bender, you need to report it for information only. Ultimately, the FMCSA regulations say that if the victim can convince a jury, they've got to pay. But the policy probably has a provision that goes something about cooperation. They can put you on notice early on that they're defending you under reservation of rights, and that failure to report is on you, because they think they were, quote, deprived of the opportunity to adjust it and develop the kind of defense case they should have. So you judge me right there, my friend.
Insurance companies hate surprises. That's the one thing I've learned about working with them for almost 50 years. They don't want to be surprised.
No.
Well, and if it's going to hit their loss run, the first thing they're going to do is defend you under reservation of right.
Yep.
Right.
Well, and one of the bonus parts is, as an insurance provider and a person who's paying for those services, it's a partnership. Do yourself a favor, partner with your insurance provider, be honest with them, and they'll be there to support you when you need them. Everybody's afraid of the insurance guys going, ooh, necessary evil. Well, not really. If you have a good relationship with them and you don't have a lot of claims, and then you have one that, might go sideways, they'll be there for you and they won't hesitate to help you.
But they will drop you like a hawk if
Yep.
you don't report it and you don't, follow their protocols. I remember years and years and years ago, we had a driver get into an accident and didn't take pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Lauren, why didn't you take pictures? And he said, well, I just touched her wheel. It was nothing. Nothing was $400,000.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The insurance company was not happy with him.
Yep. Now you got no evidence, right?
Exactly.
And so from the standpoint of FMCSA, Rick, what happens if you're in an incident and you don't report an accident? Is there any kind of ramifications that you need to be worried about?
It's a reportable accident. Whether it's a reportable accident or not, isn't it, Rick? FMCSA.
We don't have any requirement. Yeah, we don't have any requirement anymore that you notify the government of a crash you're involved in.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, if the accident, if the guy that comes out of justice and it's a towaway or personal injury, they've got criteria for that getting in their system, and at that point, you've got another issue that goes beyond the question of insurance. It goes about how badly does it whore up your SMS score, and
Yes.
we all know that the SMS score is particularly fragile when it comes to small carriers.
Right.
So, whether or not it's time to take pictures may depend not so much on the extent of the injury, but whether or not that accident is going to be appealable. You're going to be able to get it off your record.
Mm-hmm.
Rick can tell you more about that because you probably want to know, but wouldn't you agree, Rick?
Yeah, now the agency gets a copy of every crash, supposed to get a copy of every crash report that's prepared by any law enforcement agency in the country. And they do a pretty good job. They get about 95% of them. Some of the little local police departments are real good at reporting them. But most states now have a state accident reporting system, provide them to the state. Because when I was DA, I make sure that we got all of those reports uploaded to the state's mainframe, which we could turn around and provide FMCSA with the certain data elements that they wanted. Now, the FMCSA does not get the crash report. They only get the 50 data elements, driver CDL, the carrier DOT number, things of that nature. They do not get the narrative. They do not get the diagrams. They don't get any of that. So if there's a crash that it pertains to a certain carrier, then it's the carrier's responsibility to data queue that crash if it meets the criteria of what they call the Crash Preventability Determination Program. I file a lot of them for carriers. It's very difficult to get them granted because it's just about very clear and accurate that that was somebody else's fault. Now, we have had some front-facing cameras that's really helped us too. I had here in downtown Nashville where a truck came over, just drove us into the New Jersey barrier on the left. And they did grant that one, even though under their guidance, I don't think they would have granted it based on what the police reported. So we actually had this video and that helped a lot. But you never know when you file those data queues. I try not to file them unless I think I've got a pretty good chance of winning them. But they're tough and to win. I've got one right now. They denied twice. We pull them over on, we cross a 4-lane divided highway, not a limited access, but just a 4-lane divided highway with like a 50 or 60 foot median in it. Our trailer, we pulled that mobile home all the way across the southbound lane, and we were going to go north. And our trailer was sitting in the medium, basically, with this crossover. Well, here comes a car down there, runs off in the medium, goes airborne, and goes to the house trailer. I wish we'd had a video of that. I think that would be great. It looked like one of the old Barnstormer videos, because that car actually went through the whole rear end of the mobile home. But anyway, the agency would not determine determined that to be not preventable because it didn't meet their criteria. I even, I mean, the police officer even said the car entered the median several hundred prior to the point of impact, and then went airborne when it got to the culvert, and then went above the actual trailer frame and through the mobile home itself. They still denied. But, I got now I'm working on. I don't think we got a chance to win it either. Very tight, 4-lane divided highway on 2-lane side. Car in front of us got out of control, bad weather. Spun around, the car in the idiot knocked it in front of us when we hit it. They will deny it. That will not be a preventable crash. I can tell you that. It's not the criteria. But at least we got some video. You mentioned the video. Most people really love the videos, but it's kind of like we say is one old crap races 1,000 attaboys, So you got to always remember that about the videos too.
Right. So yes, sir, John. I want to wrap. I kind of want to make sure that we haven't missed anything. Try to get these broad strokes on when it comes to the accidents, and then I want to throw it back to Hank on the dispatcher thing. So go ahead.
Rico, I want to say something before you do that. I just want to put my 2 cents in. As far as crashes go, the best, and I'd love our guests' opinion on this, but I think the most important thing is before you have the crash, and we never know when we're going to have them, make sure, for God's sakes, your ducks are in a row, that you're legal, that if you did a pre-trip, make sure you did it. If you signed that you checked the truck, for God's sakes, check the truck. If you said that the brakes are good, make sure the brakes are good, because if you said the brakes are good and an hour before and they were found not to be good an hour after, as they say down the south, you're in the heat. And I cringe when I hear these owner-operators and very small fleets when it comes to the safety blitzes saying we're going to pull our trucks off the road during those blitzes. If you're running commercial, any vehicle up and down the road, it should be able to withstand any safety check, because you know what? Forget about the safety checks. If you are involved in a crash, and it's a serious crash, they are going to do a forensic investigation on your piece of equipment. And if you're
white glove service,
yes, and if you've got something wrong with your equipment, all of a sudden, where you may have not really been at fault, all of a sudden, because you're operating an 80,000-pound vehicle, you all of a sudden become at fault. And that's all I want to add here.
Well, I was going to say, I use a phrase from my mother. You never know when you're going to be in a crash, so make sure you're wearing clean underwear.
Bingo.
And with that said, you never know when you're going to be in a crash, so make sure your truck is 100%. That
Bingo.
piece of equipment, that's clean underwear.
Yes, I agree.
You can't control when that's going to happen or if it's ever going to happen. So
yeah, exactly.
Why take the chance? And if you're operating a piece of crappy equipment, why are you working for that company? So,
or even your own. Yeah.
Well, and if you're an owner operator running a piece of crappy equipment, why are you doing that? There's no need for that.
Yep,
so
I agree.
Anyway, I just wanted to add one comment earlier there with what Rick was talking about, and just to kind of reinforce the reporting of an incident. You might think it's small, but if it gets reported to the local police and then it shows up on your SMS profile or your Canadian carrier profile, guaranteed the insurance companies are looking those over. And if they find one on your profile that you didn't report on the loss run, now all of a sudden they're wanting to know how many of you not told us about. So that'll just rake you in, and now you'll really lose credibility with your insurance partner.
It'll cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. All right. So, gentlemen, I appreciate it. I wanted this thing just came across, and I definitely, since we had Hank on, I wasn't expecting this, but it came across, and since we got Hank on, man, I know this is like a big slow ball across the home plate. So we're gonna let Hank knock it out of the park for us.
Well,
Tell us
listen,
about the
I don't
guy.
know. I don't know why, as a lawyer, I get only 5 minutes to vent my spleen at the
No.
FMCSA.
Take your
It is
time.
just
Take your
very
time,
not
man.
simply
Take your
fair.
time.
You guys hang with me if Zoom doesn't cut us off, because right here between Thanksgiving and Christmas time, we got three beefs, and one beef is uh, the fraud that's going on in the trucking industry and the way it's affecting small carriers who can't vet out the crooks. Now, in this silly rulemaking that Congress mandated over the dispatch services, we made extensive comments pointing out that uh, it would be a license to steal to say that someone could represent themselves as a non-broker, arrange for transportation and filch money, and that rather than change the rules, which are very clear and very effective, they ought to put somebody out on the street chasing the frauds. And we gave them examples of the frauds. They didn't so much as look at what we submitted. They came out with this new order giving us credit for the fact that we had 13 trade associations, including shippers and brokers and air forwarders, representing over 20,000 carriers. They didn't really look at that. What they said was, well, we're going to put in interim rules because the government told us we had to do something by October, and it's past October. And the interim rules we're going to put into effect are basically going to say that somebody ought to call a ball and a strike on an individual case based upon the facts of the case. And still, we agree that if they're arranging for transportation for compensation and are not part of the ordinary operation of the company, they need a broker's license. But there may be extenuating circumstances. So what this did was it just took a clear rule and said it'll be a case by case judgment during the interim, which will only give the fraudsters one more argument keep you from getting to them. You know, they'll say, "Oh, I somehow thought I had a power of an appointment." From your point of view, as a carrier who is called by somebody who says, "Oh, I work for JB Hunt," you'll have a harder time trying to figure out whether or not they're part of the ordinary operation of Hunt and can speak for Hunt, or whether or not they're an authorized broker. Take home for it for anybody on the call is you be damn sure that you're doing business with a licensed, authorized, and insured property broker. You be doggone sure that your name is on the bill of lading, and you instruct your truck driver to say ET call home if you get there and some stranger's name's on the bill rather than yours. There's a whole system that I'd love to talk to small carriers in particular about a supply chain protocol to deal with this problem. We're making some progress at trying to ring the FMCSA's bell, tell them that they need to be concerned about this. You know, a safety may be their middle name, but they've got the jurisdiction over it. And if the agency doesn't have the time or money to listen to it, we need to go to the OIG, which is at the department level, because they have more interest in it than the FMCSA does. That's my spot number one. And indulge me for one more minute. The other important thing is the Department of Labor, which is indebted to the union portion of the country, has got a political payback underway. It involves reclassifying at some level. The owner operator model is part of a sieve way of including everybody from the guys working 9 to 5 to the gig economy, and say that you don't any longer have your independent contractor treatment. Now, that will be an interesting issue for many of the people on the phone who have absorb the expense of getting your own authority. and there's a smart way to do that. It's an entrepreneurial opportunity. You make the decision to do it. But if you have to do it because you can't operate as an independent contractor anymore, you got a whole lot of cost and problems. What we're going to try to explain to the Department of Labor through the SBA is that the owner-operator model is a choice, not involuntary slavery, and that there are at least 200,000 guys out here who are independent contractors living in small towns, able to basically choose their routes, rates, and services. It's a choice, not something that needs to be unionized. There's another Department of Labor initiative out there called the co-employer status that would say that basically if you are a one truck operator, you could be included in a bargaining group with the shipper you serve. That gentleman goes back to something we faced in the U.S. 40 years ago when you had to have a union card to get into Kroger or to provide service to GM. That's not something we want to go back to. And our position is going to be a little unique because we're primarily representing the small business interests and saying, hey, look, don't fool with the owner-operator exemptions baked into the law. It's something that Congress knows best about, and you don't have any expertise in it. Don't tell us we're 9-to-5 employees. So I'll get off my pulpit now. I'll let you close it up
Well done.
between the mustard and the mayonnaise.
No, I appreciate it, Hank. Once again, everybody, every time Hank comes on, mine's a little beat up. But this is Hank's
Send me a
book.
note to send you a new complimentary copy. Really, I guess tonight what I would say is if there's anybody on the phone who feels half as passionate about the independent contractor model as I do, send me an email. I found somebody 3 weeks ago. The guy was a NASTC best driver of the year, and I started talking to him, and he said, "Yeah," he says, "I drive one truck, and I've got brother-in-laws and brothers that drive the other 5. I own the company, and I'm the travel agent for my kinfolks." And I thought, hey, that's interesting because at the end of the day, he's providing the safety, the management, hunting the loads, and it's actually sponsoring a whole bunch of folks in Wisconsin where apparently they have no other jobs. So I'm just saying it's not a one size fits all.
Of course not.
Right. But this is the book, everybody. You can get a copy of it on Hank's website. That's transportationlaw.net. That's right, Hank.
Yep.
You can order your book from there. He talks about vetting carriers, understanding contracts, understanding your rights, all that good stuff. This is the truckers. I call it the truckers Bible. I affectionately call it the truckers Bible. This is a real practical guide to give you to help keep you out of deep doo-doo when it comes to understanding these contracts and all different things that you are dealing with when you are owner operator with your own authority, and you don't have a legal department per se to call. This is a great practical guide to keep you on the straight and narrow. With that being said, Rick Gobble, you can find Rick Gobble, rickgobble.com. I'm going to try to put links to all of their websites down in the description a little bit later when we post it up on YouTube. John, do you have a website or anything that you'd like to share with us before we get out of here?
I do. Yes, it's summitriksolutions.ca. It's a bit of a mouthful, but summitriksolutions.ca.
All right, I'm gonna try to make sure we get that posted as well. And so with that being said, gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your schedule to come on board and join us and sharing the wealth of information that you shared with us tonight. We definitely are grateful for you doing so and appreciate you for taking time out doing so. We could never, I can't say thank you enough. With that being said, Chuck.
Well, first of all, I want to just say one thing. I've used the services of all three of our guests, and they are all stellar. So for any of our listeners that need a lawyer or safety help with safety, we have the people here tonight. So don't hesitate to reach out to any of them. If anybody needs to get hold of me, best way to do it these days, chuck@traffics.com, whether you need some help with your business or you want to get set up with one of the traffic's offices. I'll take you and introduce you to the right people because I love doing that for our listeners. And with that, Rico, I'm going to let you back her in a hole for another week.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate it once again. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. Tell a friend to tell a friend, like, share, subscribe. I can't say that enough. We want to try to get the grow the podcast and get it out to as many people as we possibly can. And by you liking, sharing, and subscribing, it doesn't cost you a thing. The show is free. We want to always keep it that way. Make sure you do that to help us out to get the show out to as many people as we possibly can. With that being said, we want you guys out there. Hopefully, you got more tools for your toolbox tonight. Some good practical information that you can go on down the road with. Stay safe out there. Stay healthy. Keep it in between the mushrooms and the mayonnaise, and God willing, we'll talk at the same time, same place next week. God bless you and good night.
Good night.
Catch you on.
Take care, y'all.
Thanks, guys. God bless.
Bye.